Hello everyone, Phoenix Knight here. Welcome to the channel, and welcome to a new playthrough on the channel. After spending last week's video in the Star Wars galaxy, we're back to Earth and back in time a few thousand years. This week, to commemorate the Ides of March on Wednesday, we're going to continue Pandemic Month on the channel as we play Pandemic: Fall of Rome. In this game, we're trying to stop the fall of Rome by using several of the leaders and their various powers to help us out. Now, we need to be careful not to let any of the rival tribes of barbarians get too far out of control, because not being able to place cubes for our opposing tribes is one of the ways we can lose this game. We also lose if we advance all the way down the corruption track, which I'll point out when we take our first look at the board, if we need to draw a card from the player deck but we can't, or we get Rome sacked. We win by either forging alliances with or destroying all of the opposing tribes. For now, that's the 10,000 foot view. Let's work our way over to the board and we'll start off by meeting our leaders. Here's our first leader for today. The Praefectus Classis. He'll be doing everything in blue. I'll also apologize in advance because my Latin pronunciation is probably going to be horrendous. So don't be too hard on me in the comments, please. Anyway, for his special abilities, as an action, moved from a port to any other port, you may take up to 3 legions with you. And if you're in a port, as an action, discard a city card matching a color of your city to add up to 2 legions to your city. And when you roll the eagle on the battle dice, if you're in a port, remove 1 barbarian from your city. So he'll probably try to be living around ports a lot of the time, but let's see what cities he's starting off with. His first card is an orange Narbo, 6 days away from Roma. That'll be sensitive to when we figure out who's going first. Second card up, Mogontiacum, which is Black Mogontiacum, which is 31 days away from Roma. So that might be a good indication that he's going first. Third up, Orange Londinium, which is 28 days away. And an event, Abundans Cautela non nocet. Abundant caution does no harm. During the next Invade Cities step, draw 2 fewer cards, or we can drop down the Corruption track to skip the Invade Cities step this turn. Play at any time, not as an action. So we actually don't have to set where they're starting yet. We can figure that out once we see where the initial barbarians spawn. But that's our first leader, the Praefectus Classis. Now let's go meet his partner for today. Next we have the Consul, who will be doing everything in yellow. So Consul. As an action, he can add a legion to any city with a fort, and also as an action, add a legion to your city. When he rolls the eagle on the battle dice, add 1 legion to your city. His starting cards, first up, we have Black Syracuse, which is 5 days away. Second up, Orange Burdigala, 19 days away. Third up, Blue Aquilea, which is 10.5 days away, and White Nova Carthago, which is 11 days away. So the Praefectus Classis will actually be going first. We now have our cities so we can place our characters, but we need to go over to the board so we can finish setup. Here's the board as we've got it all set up. So we've got the Barbarian cards up here, the Roma cards are in the discard pile. I've got the initial invasion cards off to the side right now, mostly so we can take a tour of the board. We've got our various 5 tribes. The Anglo-Saxons and Franks are in orange, the Huns are in green, Visigoths in white, Vandals in black, and the Ostrogoths in blue. We've also got our alliances down here, along with the number of cards that we need to discard in that color to forge an alliance. So we're actually not too far from forging an alliance with the Anglo-Saxons and Franks, but I'm getting ahead of myself there. We've also got our legions over here. Player cards are up here. The recruitment invasion track is up here. So right now we're at the leftmost level. If we're on a space with a fort, we recruit 3 legions, but we invade 2 cities when we invade cities. Then we've got what's actually called the decline track. I tend to use decline and corruption interchangeably because the two do the same thing. So basically, once we get down, just closing the closet behind me. So as you can see here, once we get down to the bottom of the decline track, that's one of the ways we lose the game. So I think we're all set up. Let's go ahead and invade initial city. So we have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Right. So I'll put those here. These first 3 cities are going to get 3 barbarians in the matching color. So first up we find 3 Visigoths to Philippopolis. So we'll grab 3 of these white cubes. Then next up we find Mogontiacum getting 3 Anglo-Saxons and Franks. Then the last that's getting 3 Black Mogontiacum. So the Vandals getting to Mogontiacum. That's going to be a mess. And then these 3 cities, yep, these 3 get 2 barbarians. The Huns to Philippopolis. Visigoths to Tyrus. And the Huns to Carnuntum, so 2 green. Or Carnuntum. And then these last 3 get 1. Anglo-Saxons and Franks to Jesoriacum. Ostrogoths to Carnuntum. Carnuntum. We just went through this, Phoenix Knight, and Ostrogoths to Chersonesus. Alright, now we can place our characters. We've got a mess on our hands right now. As much as I want to be able to start the Praefectus classes on a port, I think we need to do some babysitting on Mogontiacum. So I'm going to start him there. I may end up also tossing that Mogontiacum to put a fort down there. Then the consul, let's see. Syracuse is way in the middle of nowhere. Burdigala, where is Burdigala? Even further in the middle of nowhere. Aquileia, that's not too far from Carnuntum. Nova Carthago. I think the only city that the consul wants to start in right now is Aquileia. I can get him over to Philippopolis and maybe do a little bit of babysitting there, but that's everything set up, so let's get into this playthrough, and we'll start with the Praefectus classes. We need to babysit that disaster right away, that brewing disaster in Mogontiacum right away. So, the Praefectus classes is going to discard, for action 1, he is going to discard his Mogontiacum card to put a fort down there. Then action 2, he's going to recruit 3 more legions. So we'll bring those 3 over to Mogontiacum. Then action 3 will bring the dice tower and shot. I don't know where in the world I'm going to put this thing down. Yeah, we can put it down there. It's a little bit imposing, but I think it'll do the job. So we get to fight with up to 3 battle dice, depending on the number of legions in the city. We do have 3 there. Mostly so I can try to get some of those off board. All right, so we get three barbarians off the board. The eagle doesn't do anything because we're not in a port city, unfortunately. But we do lose a legion. So one goes back. We get to take 3 off the board. I'll take 1 of each. And a second... I guess I'll take a second Vandal off for now. And then since that city's not immediately going to explode... Let me get that out of shot. I think we can move the Praefectus Classus. And he'll be able to take up to 3 legions with him. So we'll send him up to Jazoriacum to get him to a port. So we can get him around the board anywhere we need to. Like I said, mostly because and there's a legion there to defend. So, and they're supported by a fort. So I'm not too worried about anything catastrophic happening right now. So we do draw 2 player cards. So first up we find Blue Sinope. We're very sore on blue cards right now, and we're very short on those. Black Carthago. So we're not doing too terribly bad right off the start. At least we managed to get that mess babysat, but we do need to invade cities. So first up we find the Vandals trying to get to Lugdunum, which they actually can get here because they've got because the Vandals have a foothold in Mogontiacum. And our second city, that's the Visigoths trying to get to Petrae, but they can't get there. So we follow their cube and we work their way backwards along the chain until we find that they can get to Constantinopolis, which we don't have a terrible mess right now. So that's it for the Praefectus Classus. Now down to the consul. We'll move the camera just a touch so I can make sure I get his destination in shot for this turn. So he'll take both of his legions with him for action 1 to Narona, action 2 to Philippopolis. We could have discarded something to travel, but I'm not really sure what we need yet, so I don't think there's much value in discarding right now. Action 3 will bring the dice tower into shot. Can we set that there? We can. I think that'll work. So this time the consul actually only gets 2 dice to fight with. Actually, before we do that, no. I could add a legion to my city as an action, but we're not going to do that. Actually, yeah, we will. For action 3, we'll add a legion to the city, so we get the 3rd die. So we get the 3rd die to fight with. So I just put the 3rd one in. So we get rid of 3 legions, but we lose. So we get rid of 3 barbarians, but we lose 2 legions. So 2 legions go back, and I'll take 1 white. I'll take 2 white and a green. So we go down to 1 of each. We'll bring the dice tower out of shot. That's it for the consul's turn. Let's draw 2 cards from the player deck. So we will draw a blue Aroma, which is kind of welcome because we'll need those for an alliance, and a green Carnuntum. We need green cards. We're even shorter on those. Actually, we're short on pretty much everything right now at the start of the game, but we invade cities. So first up we find I'm dropping cards today, apparently, is what I'm finding. Let's try this again with a little less card droppage, Phoenix Knight, shall we? The Anglo-Saxons and Franks want to get to Eboracum, but they can't, so they work backwards until they get to Londinium. And the Huns trying to get to, what is that, Euvavum, which they can do because they've got a foothold in Carnuntum. So that's it for the console. We'll move back to the Praefectus Classis. Reposition the camera slightly. What is their destination? What is the Praefectus Classis' destination right now? I don't think there's anything that's pressing. I don't think there's anything that's pressing right now because we got most of the... Well, we got most of the threes under control right now, so... So I think for Action 1... Do we just set up to start preparing alliances? And try to organize where we need things? Actually, that's not a completely terrible idea. Because we can get the console over to... If we can concentrate, we can start concentrating alliances, so let's do that. I should also mention the house rule I'm playing with, where... Actually, is it a... Yeah, either give the... Okay, so around the plot action, which is also known as the trade action... The house rule I have is instead of just a matching city, you can trade anything you want. So that's a house rule I play with. So for Action 1, we'll bring the Praefectus Classis over to Constantinopolis because he can move over there as an action. So we'll tip the camera over here. We'll bring 3 legions with him. He doesn't have to discard a city to move to it. Action 2, he'll bring the legions with him. Action 3, he'll give the... Action 3, he'll take Burdigala from the console, and then Action 4, he'll give Sinope to the console. So I'll need to draw 2 player cards here. First up, we will find... Homer Faber Fortunae Sue. Man is the architect of his own fate. The current player may draw a city card matching their city from the player discard pile, or if we advance down the corruption track, the current player may draw any city card from the player discard pile. Right now we only have Mogontiacum in the discard pile, so we don't particularly need that yet. But our second player card is a Black Lugdunum, which we might keep an eye on that, because we do need 5 player cards to discard for an alliance, but we do need to invade cities next for the Praefectus Classis' turn. So first up, we have the Huns trying to get to Petray, which they can do. So they get there, and we've got the Vandals trying to get to Athene, which they cannot do, so we follow this back until we find that they can get to Burdigala, because they have a foothold over here, and they have a foothold in Lugdunum. You can't see it off camera right now, but we'll move to the console next. So Action 1, he'll take a legion with him. Action 2 will move over to Sinope. Action 3 will discard 3 blue cards to forge an alliance with the Ostrogoths. And I believe when we enlist barbarians, we have to discard a matching city. Yep, matching an allied tribe's color to replace all barbarians of that color in your city with legions. Okay. That was Action 3, so Action 4... where do we want to go next? I think we'll just start kind of working our way back into the action. So we'll move to Constantinopolis. Right now we really don't have a pressing objective with the console, especially since we just forged the alliance, but we do need 2 player cards from the deck. We find Black Caesar Augusta, which now we've got those scattered. We'll probably need to get those concentrated pretty quickly. And White Genoa. So we've got the... So right now, so far the console has our Visigoth cards, but we need to invade cities, so we get 2 of these. First up, we've got the Visigoths trying to get to Narbo, except they can't, so working backwards without dropping the cube. Following that back... They get to Narona. And the Visigoths trying to get to Narona, which they can do, because they just put one there from the last invasion card. Alright, then the Praefectus Classis. Well, I think we'll concentrate the black cards on the console. So actions 1 and 2. I gotta move him first. The question is, actually, it might be better if I put the black cards on the Praefectus Classis, because he can move a lot more easily than he can move around ports a lot more easily than the console can. So, matching their city, which means I'd have to get him back to Mogontiacum. Right. Okay, so actually, one thing I'm going to do right now is I'm going to play this early. So I'm going to play Abundance Cautela non Nocet. During the next Invade Cities step, draw 2 fewer cards, which amounts to skip the Invade Cities step this turn without advancing down the Decline track. Like I said, I'm using Decline and Corruption interchangeably. So we've got that out of this hand. What to do after that? So action 1... Actually, I don't know if we really have a plan right now with the... Do I just stick with my plan to concentrate the... That's probably fine. So action 1, I'll bring the legions with him down to Constantinopolis. Actions 2 and 3, I'll give the console the 2 black cards that the Praefectus Classis had. And then action 4, he will sail up to... He'll move up to Jazoriacum, which, remember, as an action, he can do that as long as he's on a port space. So we'll move the camera and capture the Praefectus Classis up in Jazoriacum. This way, if we draw the cards we need, we can actually get an alliance pretty quickly. So we need 2 player cards. First up, Black Tinge, which will have to move down to the... Or Black Tingy, I should say. We'll have to get that to the console as fast as we can. And our first revolt. So let's move back up top to resolve this revolt. Alright, so to resolve a revolt, you're just going to follow the directions on the card. So the first thing you do is move the invasion rate marker 1 space to the right. So we're still recruiting 3 legions and invading 2 cities. Then we draw the bottom card of the barbarian deck and add 3 matching barbarians to that city. So our city here is the Visigoths in Aquileia. So we get 3 barbarians there. Then the last step is we intensify, shuffling the cards in the barbarian discard pile and putting them on top of the deck. The dangerous thing here is now we put that back toward the top of the deck. And that's a potential sacking problem. Which we do need to keep an eye on that. So maybe worth trying to babysit that in express time, but I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself there. We'll give that a cut, and then that's back on top. Now we would normally invade cities, but since I played Abundance Cautela non Nocet, we actually draw 2 fewer cards, which this early in the game amounts to skip the invade cities step. So that's all done. With that, we're down to the console's turn. So let's move back down to the console. I'm looking to set the console up to forge an alliance with the Vandals in express time. So I think the way I want to do that is I need to discard matching destination. The question is, where do I want to go right now? There's an argument to be made to try to babysit Aqualea right away, just to keep that from sacking, which I think we're going to act on. So we have to, so to sail, it's matching the color of the destination. Okay. So we'll discard a white card. We'll discard Genoa. To sail up to, we'll have to move just a touch. To move up to Aqualea, we'll take a legion with us. Then as an action, the consul can add a legion to the city. So 2/3 will be to add 2 legions to Aqualea. Then action 4, we need the dice tower and shot. If I can get it somewhere that it's going to be a little less out of the way. But we'll actually get to fight. So we get all 3 dice because the consul added a couple legions to the city. Alright, so that's two barbarians lost. We would lose a legion, except the eagle roll from the consul adds a legion to the city. So it's basically like nothing happened. In terms of the legions, we just got rid of 2 of the Visigoths there, but we're all done with that. So now we draw from the player deck. So 2 cards for the consul. We find Green Roma and Vaevictus, Woe to the Defeated. After removing barbarians from a battle, remove up to the same number of barbarians from one other city, or down the decline track to do the above, but remove the barbarians from any combination of cities. So we could remove the same number from there. Unfortunately, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, that would put the consul at hand size. So we can't use the event right away, which means we'll discard Nova Carthago with the understanding that when we need white cities, we can get that back whenever we need it. So we do invade cities. We invade 2. We find the Visigoths are looking to get to Patrae, which okay, they can't do that, but they do get to Athene, which is as close as they can get. And the Ostrogoths trying to get to Chersonesus, which they can do. Alright, so that brings us back to the Praefectus Classus, who we can move the camera slightly and catch him in shot. So what is the Praefectus Classus doing right now? He doesn't really have much of anything to do right now. We could go to Mogontiacum and get... No, we don't need the last black card there. What we will do, however, is... Do I want to move him to... Do we set the consul up to forge an alliance with the... to forge with the Vandals next turn? Because the way we could do that is... We give the consul Tingy. Actually, we take Vaevictus, probably. The consul's going to need something to sail with, though. Actually, no, I don't think he does, actually. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, he can get to Lugdunum to forge an alliance on his turn. So I think we will act on that argument. So we'll take the... So as an action, the Praefectus Classus will move to Aqualea for action 1. Action 2, he'll take Vaevictus from the consul. Action 3, he'll give the consul Tingy. And action 4... what is his action 4? Maybe move up to Carnuntum and get ready to fight. That could be a plan, which I think we'll do. So we'll take 3 legions with him and get ready to do battle up there. So now we need 2 player cards From the deck for the Praefectus Classis, we find another Revolt, which we'll move back up top to resolve in a minute, and Chersonesus. I think, well, yeah, Chersonesus is only in blue, so that's, right now, that would be travel fodder for the Praefectus Classis, or potentially alliance fodder, but we need to move back up top to resolve the Revolt. Okay, this is bad. So we're moving over, so we move the invasion track over one to the right. Now, unfortunately, we are going to be guaranteed to have a city get sacked. The reason we're guaranteed that is because there are only 2 cards in the discard pile right now. We're guaranteed at least one city sacking this turn. Because we're drawing the bottom card of the deck, it'll fill to 3 barbarians, then we're going to do a lousy 3-card shuffle and put them back on top. So we're guaranteed to have at least one city sack this turn. But let's find out where we're sacking for sure. Tingy is going to get 3 Vandals, which is way down here in the middle of nowhere, so that may be actually a project for the Praefectus Classis to go deal with, but we do need to do our lousy 3-card shuffle. All right, I'll put those back on top. And then we'll invade cities. First up, we find Chersonesus getting another Ostrogoth. Then Petray gets another barbarian. The Visigoths trying to get to Petray, which they can do. And this should be Tingy getting sacked if my math is correct. And it is. So we advance down the decline track. And then instead of placing what would be the 4th barbarian on each connecting city, which is Corduba and Caesarea, we place a barbarian of that in that city. So, yeah, that was a problematic time for the Revolt to pop up, but at least we know what both of our players are doing this turn. So let's get down. I think we can just zoom in and get the consul's turn. So the consul will take 3 legions with him, moving 1, 2, 3. And then he'll discard 5 black cards for the Vandals to forge an alliance with the Vandals. So we're at 2 of 5, and there's also an argument to be made for potentially trying to destroy 2 of these tribes, but the problem is they're scattered around. So that's 4 actions for the consul, which means we will draw player cards. We'll find Green Mediolanum, who's got our... Ooh, the consul's actually got our green card, so we need to keep an eye on that. And Meleus Cavere Quam Pavere, better to be careful than afraid. Draw, look at, and rearrange the top 6 cards of the Barbarian deck, then put them back on top, or advance down the decline track to remove one of them from the game, then put the others back on top. That might be tempting, but we need to invade cities, so we get 3 of these, we find. The Huns trying to get to Philippopolis, which they can do. Second card up. Does not want... There we go. I was going to say it doesn't want to focus. The Visigoths trying to get to Philippopolis, which they can also do. And the Visigoths trying to get to Aquileia, which they can also do. We're not running particularly low on any of these, but still might be something to watch. But that brings us to the Praefectus Classis. We'll move the camera just slightly so I can get... Can I get him and his destination in shot? his ultimate destination shot. I think if I zoom out just a touch, I can. Yep, right there. All right, so for action 1, he'll take 3 legions with him to Aquileia. Action 2, he'll move to Tingi. Remember, he can do that as a special ability. Action 3 will bring the Dice Tower and shot so we can fight. Mostly I want to make sure Tingi doesn't turn into a bigger problem than it already is. We don't have the... Okay, we don't have the black card to be able to turn those into legions. So we'll roll for this. We get to take 3 barbarians off the board. So we get to take all 3 of those vandals off, which is very nice. And for Vevictus, remove up to the same number of barbarians from one other city, which isn't very useful to us right now, but we'll do the above, but remove the amount of barbarians from any combination of cities. So we will advance down the decline track to use the remove them from any city. So where do we want to remove from right now? Well, if we can concentrate I think we can probably forge an alliance with so we have 3 tribes left we need to deal with. The Visigoths are very much a mess right now. We're actually close to forging an alliance with the Huns, and the Visigoths are even more scattered right now than the Huns are. So I think we just work on taking out some of the more out-of-the-way Visigoths. So we'll take 2 away from Tyrus, and we'll take 1 from... We'll take 1 from Philippopolis. Actually, from Constantinopolis. We'll still have 2 on Philippopolis. Let's see. So action 1 was to move to Aquileia, 2 to sail, 3 to fight. That was an event. So action 4. What is action 4 right now? We've got 3 orange cards, and we need 1 more to forge an alliance. So we'll move as an action. We'll move back up to Jazoriacum. I think we've got that. Not quite. We'll just adjust the camera slightly. So that's all done there. Now we need 2 cards from the player deck. So first up we'll find Jazoriacum, so the 4th orange that we need to forge an alliance with the Anglo-Saxons and Franks. And a black Constantinopolis, which is probably going to end up being either sailing fodder or Legion recruitment fodder, but we need 3 cards from the city's deck. So first up we find this thing does not want to focus today. There we are. The Ostrogoths trying to get to Carnuntum, which they can do. Second card up. The Ostrogoths trying to get to Roma, which I don't think they can do. Looks like they can get as close as Aquileia, so we're not in particular danger yet. And the Vandals trying to get to Roma, which they're even more out of the way trying to do. So actually, they can get as close as Carthago, so that's actually bad. This is going to cause us some problems, but probably not catastrophic right now. We've got the consul up next. The question is, what is he doing? Good question. What is he doing? Do we just move him over to Carnuntum and have him fight? Because right now he doesn't have the cards to forge an alliance with the Huns yet, but we're getting on it. So I think we'll just go ahead and try to get some of these tougher spaces under control. So 1, 2, 3, and then he will fight for 4. Yeah, where do I want to put the dice tower here? Maybe I should use the less imposing tower. I think I will do that. I'm going to go You'll hear the closet open for a second, but that's just me getting the smaller dice tower out. As much as I like that big beast, that is one of my big problems with it. Is it is, especially on a game like this, it is very imposing. So we'll just use the smaller dice tower. Alright, so we clear everything out, but we lose 2 legions in the process. Which is not a big deal because the console is able to replenish those easily enough. The only thing I don't like about it is it takes Huns off the board, but we've probably got enough around here that we should be able to forge an alliance with the Huns sooner rather than later. So 2 player cards from the deck. Of course, that also requires us to draw the aforementioned city card. Speaking of which, Iuvavum will let us forge an alliance with the Huns next turn. And Patray, which is actually a green Patray. That's actually going to probably end up being travel fodder as well, but we need to invade cities first. So our first invasion has the Visigoths getting to Tyrus. Second invasion we'll see the Huns getting to Iuvavum. And let's see, that should be the... Come on. There we go. The Anglo-Saxon Franks trying to get to Roma, except they can't. So working backwards, they get as far as Lutetia. Alright, so that's over to the Praefectus Classus now. Action 1 for him is going to be to discard 4 orange cards. 1, 2, 3, 4. To forge an alliance with the Anglo-Saxons and the Franks. So we're 3/5 of the way home there. Action 2 will move the camera slightly so he can sail with his 3 legions. Actually, no. We'll leave 1 legion there because he's going to be picking up 2 more for his 3rd action. Action 2 is to move over to Chersonesus. Action 3, he'll toss a blue to recruit these 2 barbarians into legions. And then action 3, we will move to Tyrus. So the plan here that's starting to take shape is, the idea I've got here is I'm going to try to forge an alliance with the Huns, and then I want to execute a pincer move here, where both the Praefectus Classus and the Consul are going to try to run through the Visigoths. So remember, in any combination of forging an alliance and destroying all tribes on the board is what we need to win the game. So let's hope we can keep that under control to the point where I may end up using Melius Cavere Quam Pavere from the Consul to try to help me keep those barbarians under control. So, right. Okay, so that was 4 actions, which means we need to draw player cards. So first up we find Black Corduba, which will once again be alliance fodder most likely, and White Athene. So that's potentially an option as well, but we need to draw 3 city cards. We find Orange trying to get to Mogontiacum, except there's a fort there with the Legion defending, so the cube doesn't get placed. Second card up. We've got the Visigoths getting to Narona, which could be bad because that could result in a sacking. And The Visigoths trying to get to Roma. Okay, that's bad. Because they can get there. So we are going to need to babysit that on the express plan, which is also going to, well, I don't think it causes problems for the pincer, because the pincer, because all it means now is I go to EU Vavum to forge an alliance with the consul who's up next. So I go to EU Vavum to forge the alliance 2, 3, 4, and then the consul's half of the pincer starts in Roma, which also depends on keeping the white cards from this deck buried as long as I can. Unfortunately, a revolt very much throws dampers into that plan, but I think we go ahead with that plan anyway. So action 1, we'll move over to EU Vavum. We'll toss 4 green cards. 1, 2, 3, 4. To forge an alliance with the Huns. The question is, do I have time to recruit legions before I start this pincer, or do I just start making my way to... I'm actually going to be down in action. I forgot I was short on actions this turn. So do I just move 3, 4? Add a legion to a city with a fort. So I could add them to Roma. 1, 2, 3. I'm looking at his next turn. Do I set up in Roma? Yeah, I think I can. So we'll actually add 2 legions to Roma as for his last 2 actions. The plan here is going to be to come down. The consul is going to be moving. I wish he was on a port right now, but he's not. So the plan here is going to be to bring him down next turn and start the consul's half of the pincer over in Roma. Actually, we're going to have a very messy route on this pincer, but actually, the Praefectus class is going to make it a lot easier on us because he can move port to port and get us wherever we need to be. But I'm getting ahead of myself there, so 2 cards from the deck. We find a white Corduba, so suddenly an alliance is turning into a possibility with them. Not a likely one, but possibility. And white Philippopolis. Okay, this is starting to get interesting. I was expecting to have to destroy the Visigoths, but now I'm starting to find the white cards, and I think I've got a couple in the discard pile as well. So if we move down, I'm just looking. Yes, I've got a couple of white cards in the discard pile. So if I draw 1 more white card, actually, do I need 1 or 2 more? I need 1 more. So 1 more, then down the decline track to get another one out of the discard pile. I could actually forge an alliance with the Visigoths as well and win the game that way, but getting ahead of myself there, so we need 3 cards from the Barbarian deck. We find the Ostrogoths trying to get to, not the Ostrogoths, the Anglo-Saxon and Franks trying to get to Zozoriacum. But there are 2 legions there that are unsupported, so we lose all of the legions, but the cube doesn't get placed. Second city up. The Anglo-Saxon and Franks trying to get to Eburacum, which they can. 1 cube. And the Visigoths trying to get to Narbo, which they thankfully can't do, but they can get to Ravenna, which will disrupt our pincer even more. Actually, it might not. Actually, it might save us a turn, potentially, because it means It means the consul next turn can actually go... Let's see. Yeah, he can go 1... You can go 1, 2, Legion 3, Fight 4, and then he'll start his half of the pincer in Ravenna. Right, it's going to take a little bit of a scenic route, but I think we can get there. So the Praefectus Classis is going to start his half of the pincer over in Tyrus. So we have 3 legions. This is probably overkill, but it is a port city at least. So we'll put the dice tower, I guess, here. Oh, we had one fall out. We take the one legion off the board, but we lose 2, which is kind of problematic. All right, so right, if you're in a port, which we are, so we can discard a city matching a color to add up to 2 legions to it. Do I want to use Athene to grab a? Yeah, I think we can still, as action 2, we'll discard Athene to add 2 legions and replenish Tyrus. Since I'm still expecting a pincer move here is what we're going to need. Action 3 down to Philippopolis, and then action 4 will roll. All right, so that is, we are in a port city, so we actually removed 3 of these legions. We'll take 2 of the Visigoths and a Hun off the board, so we'll get that tower out of the way. Then 2 cards from the player deck, so the Praefectus Classis will find. Orange Genoa, which is probably mostly useless right now, and White Aquileia, so we replenish the white card that the Praefectus Classis tossed to recruit legions up in Tyrus, but we need 3 cities from the Barbarian deck. First up, the Huns getting to Carnuntum. Card 2. The Huns trying to get to Roma. Thankfully, the closest they can get is Brundisium. And we don't even really care about the Huns right now because we forged an alliance with them. And the Vandals trying to get to Lugdunum, which they can do because they have the foothold there. Now, before the consul takes his turn, I need to take a small break. Looking at the board, our pincer plan has not gone anywhere on the table. So, the consul will action 1 move to Mediolanum, action 2 to Ravenna, action 3 he'll add a legion to his city, and then action 4 he'll fight. So we'll get 2 of those dice in. Alright, so take 3 legions but lose 2. That's a problem. But we can definitely go to Roma and recruit more legions. So action 1 to move 2, legion fight. Okay, so that's 4 actions. So we'll bring the dice tower out of shot. Then our first card, consuls in Ravenna, our first card. Constantinopolis, which actually might give us the game here. And Narbo, okay. So, new plan. Yeah, very much new plan. So we actually have enough to forge the alliance with the Visigoths and win the game. So it looks like we won't need the pincer move after all. But we need to invade cities first. So here we have the Huns getting to Portray. Card 2. The Vandals getting to Mogontiacum. No legions there, but there is a fort, which I gotta remember how that works. If there's a fort there, there are no legions, add the cube. Okay. So it looks like the fort doesn't prevent the placement. And card 3. Is the Vandals trying to get to Athene, but the closest they can get is Syracuse. Then moving up to the Praefectus Classis. Do we go 1, 2, 3? Do we go 1 to Constantinopolis, 2 to Aquilea, and then 3-4? And then 3-4, just 3 to fight, 4. I don't even know what our plan is at this point, because there's really not, I don't think there's much that can derail us right now. I think we pretty much have this one on lock at this point. So maybe just, the only thing I can think of right now is maybe babysitting Arona in case we get a revolt. But even then, so yeah, move 1 to Narona, fight 2, move 3, fight 4. We probably have enough white cubes on the way that we don't really need to do much. So we can pretty much forge an alliance anywhere once we get the 2 of them together. So action 1, the Praefectus Classis will move to Narona. Action 2 will fight there. Like I said, this is mostly to prevent prevent a sack. All right, so we actually lose 2 legions. We lose 2 legions, but we remove 2 barbarians. So 2 legions gone, but 2 Visigoths gone. So that was action 2. Action 3 will move to Aquilea. Action 4. I don't think we even really have an action 4 right now, do we? We don't have a blue card. Discard a card matching a city. No, I don't really think we do, so I think we just forfeit action 4. Like I said, there's not really much I can do right now, and we've got the board, I think we've got the board pretty well under control anyway, so we'll draw from the player deck, card 1. Orange Mogontiacum, which we don't really need. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And a Revolt, which will move back up top to resolve. Honestly, I don't even think a Revolt really does anything right now. So we move the recruitment marker over. We'll draw 1 from the deck. This is the bottom card, so 3 barbarians to it. 3 Vandals to Caesar Augusta. The question now is, as we intensify, is do we even care about that sacking? And we are, I think right now really, we're too high on the decline track to even really care about Caesar Augusta getting sacked. We're too high, and I think we're too well set up right now to care about Caesar Augusta getting sacked. Sorry, I'm doing the shuffling. I normally do the shuffling in front of camera, but I'm doing it off camera. We'll give it a cut, and we'll put that back on top. We're still invading 3 cities, so here we find the Huns getting to Euvavum, 2, the Anglo-Saxon and Franks trying to get to Roma, but the closest they can get is Burdigala, and the Ostrogoths trying to get to Roma, which they can do, but there's actually a fort with legions there, so we just lose a legion from there instead, which would have caused havoc on the pincer move. But again, now that the situation's changed where the pincer move is now no longer needed, so we'll just stay up top because the game's basically over at this point. Because the consul will move 1 to Aquilea. 2, he'll take the Aquilea card from the Praefectus Classis. Then action 3, he'll toss the 5 Visigoth cards. We've forged alliances with all 5 tribes, and we've actually won Pandemic Fall of Rome. Now, I'm starting to think that my house rule actually makes this maybe a little too easy, where you can trade anything. But it's never a rule I've really liked. In the rule around that trade action is never one I've really liked in the Pandemic series, no matter what flavor of Pandemic it is. And just as kind of a general 10,000-foot view on the Pandemic games, Pandemic's, I'll touch more on this in my end-of-month recap for March, but Pandemic's always been a series, and I think a lot of it's just starting to look into Pandemic games right around the COVID-19 pandemic, where I'm probably a little more picky about the theme with this style of game than I would be with most other games. So I do have regular base Pandemic, but to me that's a game that's, I don't know, I think it just hits a little too close to home for me with the COVID-19 pandemic and all of that happening. So maybe it's just kind of a little weird quirk of mine, but like I said, Pandemic's a series where I tend to be picky about the theme. So of course this one I really did enjoy. Star Wars, I'm a big fan of Star Wars. I'm not a fan of their recent stuff, but the less said about that, the better. And of course, I love Pandemic Reign of Cthulhu, and the other one I picked up, which is WoW Wrath of the Lich King, which is also in the Pandemic system. That one gives me a lot of trips down memory lane, but again, I'll touch more on those games individually during my end-of-month recap. So that's kind of me rambling a little bit, so let's go ahead and wrap this video up. Wednesday, we're going to debut Red Rising on the channel. Probably Saturday, the next episode of Mystical Munchies from the Dungeon Meister Cookbook will be the entree, Roast Porkus, aka Garlic Stuffed Pork Tenderloin. And then next week we're going to continue Pandemic Month, moving into a very familiar setting as we play Pandemic, Reign of Cthulhu. Thank you for watching the video. Please give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Be sure to turn on notifications so you get my content. Be well, stay safe, take care of yourselves and your loved ones, and I'll be back with more videos in the future. Until then, take care everyone.